Welcome back to Beyond the Badge. He did not make a sound. That was the thing that stayed with people long after that evening ended, long after the lobby had emptied and the marble floors had been polished again and the pianist had packed up his music and gone home. In the middle of everything, the guards, the crowd, the phones raised like small glowing torches in the dim golden light, the whispers moving through the room like something contagious, the man in the handcuffs made no sound at all. He simply stood, shoulders back, chin level, eyes moving slowly, quietly around the room with a stillness so complete that several people watching would later struggle to describe it. Not the stillness of a man who had given up, not the stillness of fear, but the stillness of someone who had carried something heavy for a very long time and had learned, at great personal cost, exactly how to hold it without letting it show. The Meridian Grand Hotel was the kind of place that made people speak in lower voices when they entered. Its lobby stretched nearly the length of a city block, floored in pale Italian marble that caught light and held it the way still water holds a reflection. A chandelier imported from Venice hung at the center of the ceiling, hand-blown glass and gold fittings, each piece assembled by craftsmen whose names were recorded in a leather-bound book that still sat in the owner's private office upstairs. Along the walls, gold-trimmed columns rose toward a ceiling painted in soft amber, and at the far end of the room, near a row of tall, arched windows overlooking the city, a grand piano sat on a raised platform. The pianist had been playing something slow and aching all evening. He had stopped now. Nearly 200 people stood frozen across that magnificent space. Business travelers, couples dressed for dinner, a concierge staff member who had taken 3 steps toward the scene and then stopped, uncertain, one hand half raised. A family near the elevator, a mother and father and 2 small children who had pressed themselves into their parents without fully understanding what they were seeing, only understanding that something was wrong. Every single person in that lobby was looking at the same thing. A black man in a perfectly tailored suit, hands locked behind his back, 4 security guards surrounding him in a loose circle, the way you surround something you believe is dangerous. Phones had risen into the air so gradually, so instinctively, that no one had consciously decided to record. It had simply happened, the way certain things happen in crowds, the way people move together towards something without anyone leading. And the whispers. What did he take? Why would he even be in here? I mean, they wouldn't just... Nobody finished that sentence. Nobody needed to. Because in that lobby, in that golden light, the crowd had already written the ending of the story before the first word of it had been spoken. They had looked at the man in the handcuffs, and they had decided, quietly, automatically, with the ease of people who had practiced that particular decision so many times it no longer felt like a decision at all. Not one person stepped forward. Not one person asked the question that should have been the very first one asked in that lobby, or in any room in any city in this country where a human being stands surrounded and silent and alone. Why? But the truth that was moving toward that room with the slow, inevitable certainty of something that has waited long enough, was not going to wait much longer, because the man standing in handcuffs beneath that Venetian chandelier had personally chosen that chandelier. He had sat in a design office in Florence, Italy, on a Tuesday morning 17 years earlier and pointed to it in a catalog and said quietly, "That one." He had approved every column, every painted ceiling, every inch of marble beneath the feet of the people now watching him as though he did not belong on it. This was not just a room he had walked into. This was a room he had dreamed into existence. And what was about to happen in the next 20 minutes would not just change everyone standing in it. It would change an entire industry. But to understand what it meant, to truly feel the weight of it, you have to go back. Not 30 minutes, much further than that. Marcus Ellington Webb was born on a February morning in 1972 in a narrow row house on the east side of Baltimore, Maryland. He was the second of 4 children. His father, Raymond Webb, was a man of few words and enormous hands who worked the overnight shift at a printing press 6 nights a week and slept through most of the mornings Marcus was awake. His mother, Dorothy Webb, was the kind of woman that neighborhoods quietly organize themselves around without ever quite realizing they are doing it. She was the one people called when something went wrong. She was the one who showed up. She cleaned rooms at the Harborview Hotel downtown, had done it since before Marcus was born. She took the number 12 bus every morning at 5:45, standing in whatever weather the season offered without complaint, and she came home every evening smelling faintly of cleaning solution and something floral, the hand lotion she kept in her apron pocket, the one small luxury she allowed herself. Marcus used to wait for her by the front window. He could not have been older than 6 or 7 the first time he asked her about it. She had come home on a winter evening with her coat dusted in snow and her feet clearly aching, and she had sat down at the kitchen table and taken off her shoes with a long, slow exhale that a child should never have to hear from a parent, the exhale of someone who has given the day everything and arrived home with nothing left. "Mama," he said, climbing into the chair beside her, "is it hard cleaning other people's rooms?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she straightened in her chair, deliberately, the way she always did when she was about to say something she wanted him to remember. "Marcus," she said, "there is no such thing as a small job done with great dignity. You understand me? I clean those rooms like they are my own, because everything I do has my name on it, even if nobody else can see it." She reached out and pressed 2 fingers gently against his chest. "And one day, when the world tries to make you feel like you are less, and it will try, baby, it will try hard, I need you to already know what you are worth, not because someone told you, because you decided." He was 7 years old. He did not understand all of it, but something in those words took root in him that evening and never left. Not through high school, where he studied so hard his teachers sometimes found him in the library before it officially opened. Not through his scholarship to Morehouse College, where he was the first in his family to step onto a university campus and stood outside the admissions building for a full 5 minutes before going in, just breathing. Not through his MBA at Wharton, where he sometimes sat in lecture halls surrounded by men whose fathers had gone to Wharton before them and felt the distance between their world and his like a physical thing, and chose, every single morning, to sit in the front row anyway. He had built his first hotel at 36, a small boutique property in Washington, D.C. 62 rooms, financed by 12 years of savings and one bank that said yes after 4 had said no. He had stood in the empty lobby the night before it opened, alone, with the lights still being installed overhead, and he had thought of his mother on that kitchen chair with her shoes off and her feet aching, and he had made a quiet promise to her and to himself. Every person who walks through any door I build will feel that they belong here. Every single one. Webb Global Hospitality now operated across 11 countries, 43 luxury properties, 11,000 employees, and Marcus Ellington Webb, at 52 years old, still did unannounced inspections, still walked into his own hotels as a guest, without warning, without fanfare, wanting to see the truth of what he had built without the performance that followed when people knew the owner was watching. Tonight, he had come to see the truth. He had not known how much of it he was about to find. The evening air was cool and carried the faint promise of rain as the black Mercedes came to a stop in front of the Meridian Grand. Marcus stepped out slowly, the way a man steps out of a car when he is in no hurry because the night belongs to him and he knows it. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment and looked up at the building. The lights were warm. The entrance was beautiful. 17 years of his life lived in every detail of the facade. He felt, as he always did in these moments, something that was not quite pride and not quite grief, but lived somewhere quietly between them. The particular feeling of a man who remembers every sacrifice that brought him to a place. He was still looking up when the valet walked past him without a word and moved toward the Bentley pulling in behind the Mercedes, greeting the white couple inside it with an outstretched hand and a wide, genuine smile. Marcus watched this for a moment. Then he stepped toward the valet. "Excuse me, I'll need the car parked for the evening." The valet glanced at him briefly. "Sir, this entrance is for hotel guests only." Marcus said nothing for a moment. He looked at the young man, truly looked at him, and then he nodded once and adjusted his cufflinks and walked toward the entrance. He did not correct him. He never did in these moments, because his mother had taught him something more useful than anger. She had taught him patience, the patience of a person who understands that truth does not need to be announced. It only needs to be witnessed. At the front desk, a young supervisor named Claire Hutchins looked up as he approached. She was perhaps 28, with the practiced composure of someone who had worked luxury hospitality long enough to know how to make almost anyone feel welcome. Almost anyone. Her smile appeared and then shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, as Marcus came closer. He had seen that shift before. He had seen it so many times across so many years that he had stopped being surprised by it. That did not make it hurt less. It simply meant the hurt was familiar now, worn smooth by repetition, the way a stone is worn smooth by water. Still there, just quieter. He placed his passport and his Centurion card on the counter. "Good evening. I have a reservation. Presidential suite." Claire picked up the passport and studied it with a careful attention that had nothing to do with verification and everything to do with doubt. "I'm going to need to run some additional checks before I can process this," she said. "Of course," Marcus said. He folded his hands on the counter. He waited. Within 90 seconds, a white couple appeared beside him. No reservation, no credentials presented. Claire's entire bearing transformed. Her shoulders dropped, her voice warmed 2 full degrees, and inside of 2 minutes, she had placed them in a suite and offered champagne and wished them a beautiful evening. Marcus watched all of it, every second. He watched it the way a doctor watches a symptom they have seen 100 times and hoped each time they would not see again. He was still at the counter, still waiting for his additional verification, when the woman across the lobby screamed, "My brooch! Someone has taken my brooch!" The voice belonged to a woman named Patricia Holloway Reed, a regular guest at the Meridian Grand, well-dressed and well-known to the staff, whose distress now filled the lobby like a sudden change in weather. Her hand was at her collarbone. Her face had gone pale beneath its careful makeup. "It is a diamond and sapphire brooch. It was a gift from my late husband. It is irreplaceable, and someone in this lobby has taken it." Security responded within seconds. The head of security, a heavy-set man named Officer Dennis Grayson, came quickly through a side door with 2 guards, his radio already in his hand. And the crowd moved. Not on evidence, not on reason, on something older than both of those things. Something that lived in the space between assumption and instinct, in the place where bias makes its home and calls itself common sense. Every eye in the lobby settled on Marcus Webb. Grayson crossed the floor toward him with the measured, unhurried walk of a man who had already concluded his investigation before it began. "Sir, I need you to step away from the counter and open your briefcase." Marcus turned to face him. His voice was steady and quiet and carried no edge whatsoever, which was perhaps the most extraordinary thing about it. "I'm happy to cooperate with any legitimate inquiry," he said. "Can you tell me specifically why I am being singled out?" We have a reported theft. You need to comply." "I understand that. I am asking you, am I being detained?" Grayson looked at him for a long moment. The lobby watched. "Yes," he said, "you are." The handcuffs came out. And Marcus Webb, who had built this lobby with his own vision, who had chosen this marble with his own hands, who had hung that chandelier and painted that ceiling and spent 17 years making this place exactly what it was, closed his eyes for just 1 second. In that second, in the private dark behind his eyelids, he saw his mother at the kitchen table, shoes off, feet aching, sitting up straight anyway. "Already know what you're worth, baby. You decided." He opened his eyes. He stood still. 3 months before that evening, Marcus Webb had done something quietly and without announcing it to anyone outside his legal and technology teams. He had installed a comprehensive AI monitoring system throughout the Meridian Grand. Not for revenue, not for efficiency, for truth. Every service interaction at the front desk was recorded and logged. Every decision, who received a warm greeting, who was made to wait, who was approached by security without cause or complaint, was analyzed against every other decision made in the same period. The system had been designed to surface the patterns that living inside a system makes invisible. It had been running since the moment Marcus walked through the door. His phone vibrated once in his breast pocket. On the other end, his chief legal officer, a sharp and unflappable woman named Renata Osei, had been watching the lobby feed from the corporate office 12 blocks away. Beside her, 6 attorneys sat around a conference table, and Renata had already placed a call to someone else. Someone whose voice, when it came through the hotel manager's phone moments later, made the man go completely and visibly pale. Gerald Ashworth, chairman of the National Franchise Association that licensed the Meridian Grand brand. His voice was not loud. Men like Gerald Ashworth had learned long ago that the quieter a voice, the more a room listens. "I need whoever is standing in that lobby right now to stop what they are doing," he said, "and tell me whether they understand the gravity of what I am looking at on this feed." Silence. "The man you have placed in handcuffs is Marcus Webb. He is the founder and sole owner of Webb Global Hospitality. He designed that lobby personally. He holds the deed to the property. He operates 43 luxury hotels across 11 countries." A pause that lasted exactly as long as it needed to. "You have handcuffed the man who owns the building you are standing in." The handcuffs were off in seconds. Marcus stood in the center of the lobby and rubbed his wrists slowly. Not with anger, not with performance, with the quiet, private movement of a man processing something that should never have happened, and has happened before, and will, he knows, happen again to someone else if nothing changes tonight. He looked around the room, at the 200 faces watching him, at the phones still raised in the air, at Claire Hutchins behind the front desk who had gone completely still, at the chandelier above his head, burning gold and warm, that he had chosen in Florence on a Tuesday morning 17 years ago. When he spoke, his voice did not rise. It did not need to. "My mother cleaned hotel rooms," he said. "She rode a bus to work in the dark every morning of my childhood, and she came home every evening with tired feet and a dignity that nothing in this world ever managed to touch." He paused. The lobby held its breath. "She told me once that there is no such thing as a small job done with great dignity. She told me that everything you do has your name on it, even if no one else can see it." His voice stayed level. But something behind his eyes was not level. Something behind his eyes was a 7-year-old boy at a kitchen table watching his mother sit up straight when she had every reason not to. "In the past 40 minutes, I have been turned away at the entrance of my own hotel, made to wait at my own front desk while other guests were served without question, and placed in handcuffs in a lobby I built with my own hands. Not because of anything I did. Not because of a single thing I said or did or carried or wore. He let that sit in the air for a moment. Because of how I look. He produced a document from his jacket pocket. 6 months of data. The numbers were not abstractions, they were decisions. Hundreds and hundreds of small daily decisions, each one invisible on its own, devastating in some. Black guests at the Meridian Grand waited an average of 43% longer for basic services. They were asked to verify payment 310% more often than white guests presenting identical or lesser credentials. They were approached by security without complaint or incident 520% more frequently. The lobby absorbed those numbers in a silence so complete you could hear the chandelier's hum. And then, Patricia Holloway Reed, still standing near the concierge desk, slowly raised her hand to her collarbone. Her fingers found something there. Something hard and cool and set with stones. The brooch. Right where it had always been, beneath the fold of her scarf, right where she had pinned it before dinner and then forgotten, the way a person forgets what is always there. The sound that moved through the lobby was not quite a gasp. It was something heavier and more honest than a gasp. It was the sound of a room full of people arriving, all at the same moment, at the same unbearable understanding. They had done this to him for nothing. For absolutely nothing. Except for the reason that had never been nothing at all. Marcus Webb could have walked out of that lobby and never spoken of it again. He had the power to do that. He had the resources and the reputation and every professional reason to handle the situation quietly, to protect the brand, to settle things in private the way powerful men so often settle things that make them uncomfortable. He chose something else entirely. Within 30 days, every Webb Global Hospitality property implemented what became known in the industry as the Webb Standard. Comprehensive anti-bias training for every employee, not a 1-hour seminar, but a sustained, ongoing program developed with civil rights scholars and behavioral researchers, AI-assisted guest service monitoring with independent oversight, anonymous reporting systems for guests and staff alike, unannounced third-party audits every quarter, and a zero-tolerance policy for racially differential treatment, with consequences that were real and immediate and applied without exception to any level of staff, including management. The employees responsible for that evening, Claire Hutchins, Officer Dennis Grayson, and the hotel's general manager, were placed on immediate suspension and subsequently terminated. Marcus held a press conference the following morning. He stood before the cameras without notes. "I want to be precise about what this is," he said. "This is not revenge. I have no interest in revenge. This is accountability. And then, because accountability without change is just punishment, this is reform." He paused. "My mother worked in hotels her entire life. She deserved to be treated with dignity in every one of them. So does every person who walks through any door I have ever built. That is not a new standard. That is the only standard. And from this day forward, it will be enforced like one." 6 months later, the Webb Standard had been voluntarily adopted by 318 luxury properties across North America and Europe. 119,000 employees had completed the training program. Discrimination complaints across those properties dropped by 61%. Guest satisfaction scores had risen across every measured demographic, and Webb Global Hospitality's annual revenue had increased by 16%. Because dignity, when you build it into the foundation of something, does not just feel right. It holds the whole structure up. 8 months after that evening, Marcus Ellington Webb stood at a podium at Morehouse College, the same school where he had once stood outside the admissions building for 5 full minutes, just breathing, before he could make himself go in. He had been invited to deliver the commencement address. He had said yes immediately, without hesitation, because there was only one place he had ever wanted to tell this story. He looked out at the rows of young men in their caps and gowns, at their families filling the seats behind them, at the morning light coming through the tall windows and falling across everything in long, warm lines. He told them about the evening at the Meridian Grand. He told them about the handcuffs. He told them about standing in his own lobby while 200 people watched and not one stepped forward. He told them about rubbing his wrists afterward and thinking of his mother. He told them about Dorothy Webb, who had ridden the number 12 bus in the dark every morning of his childhood and come home every evening with tired feet and a dignity that nothing in this world had ever managed to touch. "She told me something when I was 7 years old," he said, and his voice, for the first time that morning, did something it had not done in the lobby of the Meridian Grand, did not do at the press conference, had not done in any of the months between. It broke, just slightly, just enough. "She told me that everything you do has your name on it, even when no one else can see it." He looked down for a moment at the podium, gathered himself. "Mama," he said quietly, almost to himself. They could see it. They just weren't looking. He looked back up at the young men watching him, at their faces, open and bright and full of everything that was still ahead of them. "The people who put those handcuffs on me thought they were removing me from a room," he said. "They did not know, they could not have imagined that I had built it." He let that sit for a moment in the warm morning air. "Build your rooms, gentlemen. Build them with everything you have. Build them with your mother's name on every brick. And when they try to tell you that you don't belong," a long, quiet pause, "show them the deed." If this story reached something in you, if it reminded you that dignity is not a privilege but a right, and that one person's quiet refusal to be diminished can move something enormous in this world, then you are exactly who Beyond the Badge was made for. Please subscribe right now, because the next story is already waiting, and it belongs to someone just like him, just like her, just like you. Share this today with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. Tell us what Marcus's mother's words meant to you. We will see you in the next story. Beyond the Badge, because every story deserves to be told with dignity.